All right, I'm here. I'm here. Stop panicking. I said I'll be here. I am here. How's it going? Are you having a good day, chat? I had a terrific day ever since I noticed the recordings from Biden's visit to the United Kingdom. And what's even more passionate is fascinating. Sorry, not passionate. What is even more fascinating is that if you have a good memory like I do, and you have the misfortune of reading the news every single day, you remember how the media, how they treated when Trump broke protocol. And if you compare it to how it is when Biden breaks protocol, day and night difference, chat. Day and night difference. So today we're going to be talking about that. We have a couple of other articles, but this is probably something that I want to cover on my main channel. The far right is really into fitness. You know, it's really beautiful when you threaten your enemies for doing something virtuous. It's kind of like saying the far left is really into unfitness, which is kind of true. I mean, if you're looking at it, I never thought that we would get to see promotion of fatness. Like, it's even different than fat acceptance, right? Because fat acceptance means that you accept it. Like, you see other people and you accept it. But now it's like promotion. Like, you yourself should be fat. If you work out, that is far right. That is something very interesting, especially from the people that want public health care. One of the biggest problems that we have here in Romania, and I hear this a lot at the hospital, is when you have a patient that is suffering from liver damage due to alcoholism. So they've been drinking their entire life and now they have liver damage, right? And it takes an entire team of doctors in order to operate, and it's a very expensive procedure. I know that leftists believe that money comes from the sky, but this is actually from the taxpayer, right? It's like if 10 people gather, paid money so that the 11th person can get operated. So, you know, like hospitals usually in Romania end up at the end of the month without having certain medicine. They run out of things because the money runs out. And when you look at where is the money going? Well, okay, so the chronic drinker with liver damage, all right, so he gets the surgery, goes home, you know what he does? Starts drinking again. And it's very annoying if you're, you know, like, because for the doctor, it doesn't really matter. Like, you still do the surgery, it's the same thing, you know, you go there, you do your job. But you notice that the other person that doesn't drink, and he has liver damage, and you have to tell him, well, you actually need to get in a waiting line now. You actually need to suffer a little bit more because this other guy, who's a chronic drinker, he needs the liver before you. So this is why we had the standards in place where you can't get a liver transplant if you're a drinker. And believe it or not, people were actually upset about this. Like, they didn't really appreciate this. It's like, well, you're telling me not to drink? Yes, we're telling you not to drink if you want the liver transplant. Why is that so hard? But it's not just for, you know, liver transplant. Like, you can get hepatitis or you can get other shit. And then you need to get interferon or you need to get, like, other expensive medicine. And yeah, you know, like, as a doctor, it gets really upsetting when you see some people that actually do take care of their bodies. And they can't get what they need, but the person that is a drinker, he gets what he needs. Anyway. South Park taught me you have no power over alcoholism. Yeah. The best thing is to not get there. So, as many addictions, it's really difficult to get rid of them. It's very easy not to get into them, right? So, like, for example, I do not have a cocaine addiction. Why? Because I never put a needle into my... Well, actually, no. Hold on. I think that's heroin. Cocaine is the one you sniff, right? I never sniffed. Never sniffed. Not once, right? So, because of that, I don't have the addiction. And because I don't have the addiction, I do not feel the need to. But for other people, right? Like, once you get addicted, yes, it is very difficult to actually renounce it. And it's the same with alcoholism, it's the same with any other addiction. So the best cure is to not have it in the first place. Yeah, we're going to talk about the British in a bit. I'm actually curious, what the fuck does this article have to say? Testosterone administration induces a red shift in Democrats? I don't believe this. But anyway, right, apparently, according to this, okay, they have like this... Look at this thumbnail. What sort of thumbnail is this? Like, one of the ways that the newspapers manipulate is through the thumbnails. This thumbnail tries to induce you something. It tries to induce you that Nazis are the ones that work out, right? So if you work out, you're pretty much like a Nazi. Look at this stuff. You get these people doing the Nazi salute, and then you have like this guy that is flexing his muscles. Physical fitness and violent hypermasculine. Oh, shut the fuck up. You don't even, like, they can't even define what masculinity is. Let alone what hypermasculinity is. Hypermasculinity is being a good father. It's being strong enough to protect yourself and the people you love. Like, this is the difference that the left has subverted. They believe that a man wanting to be strong is evil. But if you look at the comic books that we grew up with, right? Like, Superman is very strong. Is he evil? Like, Superman is depicted as the strongest being in the universe. Is he evil? Right? And what's interesting is that what happens when the left requires help. Like, you have a neighborhood full of soy boys and there's a riot, like it happened in France. What do? Oh, they call the cops. Oh, I see. What do the cops do? Oh, they train. Right. The gendarmerie. Yeah, they train constantly. The gendarmerie looks like this. Is the gendarmerie fascist? Well, according to the left, probably it is. But you call on them when you need help, right? It's such a horrible ideology, isn't it? Right? Like, the idea of wanting to get strong is evil. It's not. Like, strength in itself doesn't have any moral characteristics. Like, yeah, strength can be evil, strength can be good. Like, a person that gets strong in order to defend others is good. A person that gets strong in order to overpower and dominate others is evil. Strength in itself has no moral characteristics. But in the mind of the left, it does. Why? Because they want people to control. Right? You can control weak people. Weak people who do not have the ability to defend themselves look up to the government to defend them. They look up to their betters to defend them, right? So the government can be strong. You as an individual should not be strong. You should be weak. You should be complacent. Yeah, at this point, like, people say masculinity bad, femininity good. No, like, I think even femininity is bad. And we have seen this with how the journalists and people on Twitter behave when you show them a strong, attractive woman. Like, if you show a beautiful woman from the 90s, they freak out. It's like, what is that? Unrealistic. So yeah, like, not even femininity is under attack. Masculinity is under attack. Femininity is under attack. Everything is under attack. Unless, like, basically, what in the 90s we would consider to be pathological and, like, the dredges of society, that is what is being promoted now. So anyway, right, it appears the far right has taken advantage of pandemic at-home fitness trends to expand its decades-plus radicalization of mixed martial arts and combat sports spaces. This is false. I have seen many people, left and right, during the pandemic taking advantage of fitness. There were leftists that took advantage of fitness. But not to mention, you had the riots in the United States. So you had the BLM riots, and is it unreasonable if a person looks at a burning neighborhood and says, well, maybe I need to work out, because if that shit happens here, like, I need to defend my home. There doesn't seem to be any police on the street, you're not allowed to have a gun, okay, fine. But maybe at least I can work out so that I'm not easy prey for thugs. Oh, shit, no, you can't work out either, because then you're far right. Is this why the communists in Romania had the ban on gyms? What are you talking about? The communists in Romania promoted gyms. The reason they did it, though, is because it was during the Cold War. So because it was during the Cold War, they expected, people to be combat ready. And I will show you some communist propaganda right now if you want. Hold on, let me see if it's safe to show on YouTube. I think it's safe. Sometimes, you get la gente in Google searches. It's mixed in there. Oh, look at how white supremacist the communists were. I don't know if you can see it. I'll zoom in a little bit. These are communist propaganda posters, right? Like, this existed in the Soviet Union, right? So they encourage people working out. Because again, like the whole thing was the threat of the Cold War, and they didn't know like whether it will happen or not, but they wanted the people to be combat ready in case there was a requirement for them to go under arms. So if you look at the propaganda from the Soviet Union regarding sports and stuff, I mean, it looks like white supremacy to me. There's a lot of white people that are showing their muscles and they're having children, and yeah, that doesn't look good. No diversity. They do have some diversity though. But actually, if you even remember 1984, right? Like if you remember the introduction of it, it actually did have like people having mandatory exercises in their home. Like the main character, I forgot his name, but he has to do exercises in front of the television while this lady is trying to help him cope, right? And the lady goes like, well, I had like 10 or 11 children, and look, I can still do all the push-ups. So, no, like this is the first time in human history, actually, where you encourage your population to be sick. And I think like the reason for this is that in the past, you really needed to be... I suppose you needed to be on the lookout in case there's a military conflict. But now that nukes are involved and they don't believe that we're going to have a world war, they don't need soldiers, right? So because of that, they're like, well, if the population is weak and sickly, then it's fine. I can't remember the real 1984. Yeah, I'm living it. Look at that kid's arms. Yes. Dude, everything was... unrealistic, right? Because that's what propaganda was for. Like you weren't supposed to reach that level, but you were supposed to strive to reach that level. Hello, Lord Valzi, welcome to the show. Even during the CUF, they did not want you to exercise. Yes, they shut down the gyms, but like a lot of people exercise at home, and it seems to be bothering them. Speaking of socialism, is there a functional difference between the race socialists today and the ones from the 19th century? There are many. I mean, but basically, like, all form of socialism can go down to one equation. X is oppressing Y. Y needs to rise up against X. Y needs to take away what X have and redistribute it towards Y. Right? And now you replace X and Y with the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, with the Jews and the German people, with the minorities and the cisgender heteronormative white man, right? Like it's literally the same algorithm. So it's like X oppresses Y, Y needs to rise up against... Y needs to seize the means of production from X, but basically it means to seize the wealth, and then Y needs to redistribute wealth amongst Y, right? So basically reparations. Like this is every single brand. Like no matter, I feel like this is required for an ideology to be considered socialist. Because you have like different types of socialist ideologies. It's kind of like when you go in nature and you have different types of cats, right? So you have lions, tigers, pumas, house cats. They're all cats, but they're different. Some differences can be quite major, right? Like the difference between a lion and a house cat. But they're still under the same family. It's called, scientifically felines. It's the same with socialism. It has like... different ideologies, you can call it colonial studies, you can call it Marxism, you can call it queer theory, but at the end of the day, it's part of the same family tree of ideas. It's part of the same school of thought, and I think like the equation that I gave it to you is exactly how you can tell if an ideology is socialist or not. You apply that, and if it works, then it's a socialist ideology. What happens to X? Well, they don't mention it, usually, it's interesting, like, what happens to X? It depends amongst various time periods. Usually the X used to be the aristocracy. At first, they get persecuted, right? They have their stuff taken away, and then they take more and more stuff from them. More powers, more rights. And eventually, yeah, it can lead to genocide. And the reason it leads to that is because once Y manages to take away the shit from X, it doesn't want to redistribute it among Y. So bad stuff starts happening in the country, right? Because you're creating a economic disruption and you're not fixing it, right? Because usually Y is corrupt and is going to just want the stuff that they took for themselves. And then you need someone to blame. So you're blaming X, right? Who now doesn't really have anything, doesn't have any more power, but you kept blaming them. So that's why it's not really good to be X. And X can be the aristocracy, the kulaks. Like you look through human history and you'll see. I mean, even this shit I think started with the French Revolution. And, they allowed the aristocracy to live and do their thing for a while, but then eventually they guillotined the king. Hi, V. Hope your day is good. My modern female. I like to call it women plus, though. The German socialist made a pretty instructive example, yes. X disappears in the middle of the night and is never heard from again. No, it actually doesn't happen like that. It doesn't happen in the middle of the night. It takes time. Yeah, it's pretty much like Animal Farm. But no, actually, it's not necessarily like Animal Farm, because in Animal Farm, they just got the humans to go away, right? So they didn't really have this long, arduous process where, they first start taking some rights away from the humans, from the farmer, and then they take more and more rights. No, it was like overnight. X equals person with clearly more resources than average Y. Yeah, but like the thing is, like, even when they take the resources away from that person, they still hate that person. So you had, like, for example, in the Soviet Union, members of the old aristocracy, like, after they seized the wealth and everything, and now, you had people that were hiding amongst the peasantry. When they found them, they would persecute them still. Like, the persecution doesn't end. They will never say, all right, well, we did our reparations, so now it's over. Anyway, let's keep reading this interesting article. By the way, American Outlier, did you know that if you work out, it is far right? You are a far right bigot. Also, this is also interesting, right? They will say only white people can be racist. White supremacy is the worst form of racism that there is. They will say at the same time, well, actually, non-white people can also be white supremacists. And it's like, hold on, like, how did you do the math? That doesn't work out. So, physical fitness has always been central to the far right. Oh my god. Physical fitness has been central to many ideologies around the world. This is what they are doing as a sleazy tactic in order to say, well, actually, physical fitness is evil. For those of you who just joined, I just said that physical fitness doesn't necessarily have any ideology. Like, you can be a person that wants to get strong in order to protect others. That is good. You can be a person that wants to get strong in order to hurt others. That is bad. Right? It's kind of like intelligence. Like, being an intelligent person doesn't necessarily mean that you're a good or an evil person. You can be an intelligent Machiavellian person that wants to use your intelligence for bad, to oppress other people. Or it can be a smart person that wants to use its intelligence for good. There is no such thing as like, okay, well, this is a physical trait, so we're going to assign morality to it. But they say that physical fitness has always been central to the far right. In Mein Kampf, Hitler fixated on boxing and jiu-jitsu, believing they could help him create an army of millions whose aggressive spirit and impeccable trained bodies, combined with the fanatical love for the fatherland, would do more for German nation than any other mediocre tactical weapons training. I don't know if this is the case, because I haven't read Mein Kampf, and I for sure do not think that a leftist has read it. I do not think that the MSNBC writer, Cynthia Miller, has read Mein Kampf. I press X to doubt. I haven't read it either, but I do not know if looking at the way that Germany waged war in World War II, that they would put more emphasis on the strength of the soldier rather than the military gear. Still, whatever. The Russians also believe this. Right? Like, the Soviets believe that training one, healthy body, healthy mind, is a thing. The Soviet man is viewed in almost every single propaganda poster as a strong individual looking towards the horizon. This is such nonsense to say, well, yeah, the far right did it. Yeah, they did it because everyone did it. You know, this is the same that they do with slavery. It's like America did slavery. Yeah, everyone did it. Right? But they just want to ignore the fact. It's kind of like saying, well, the Nazis ate food. And you're like, okay, but like everyone, but you're changing the subject. You're pivoting. You're moving the goalposts. It's like, no. Just because something is evil doesn't mean that everything they do is evil. Right? Because this is what they are making. They're making the Nazis into a comic book caricature where literally everything they do is evil. Their farts are evil. Their burps are evil. When they speak with evil. This is not how the world works. Okay? Like in reality, there are human beings who have good and evil in them. Some ideas are good and some ideas are evil. The fact that the Nazis drove cars doesn't make car driving evil. At the same time, you know, the people who stopped the Nazis, or the Allies, not everything they did is good, right? Their farts weren't good, their burps weren't good. Just because they were driving cars doesn't mean that driving cars is an act of good. This is the infantilization of the reader. Like they are treating the person reading this newspaper as if they are a moron. As if they are 5 years old, and unfortunately it works. There are pictures of Nazis petting a kitten, exactly, right? So like petting a kitten doesn't make the act evil in itself. It is so stupid. You know, like for example, Hitler saved the dog from the trenches. That does not make the dog evil, nor does it make the act of saving that dog from the trenches evil. It is so, but it's actually considered the genetic fallacy. Right? So the genetic fallacy means that if something came from an evil place, then that thing must be evil, which is not true. What's going on with chat today? YouTube is broken? Is it? It works for me. It's very difficult to read these things and not get a little bit upset because, you know, like seeing this level of propaganda for a person who went to university and actually did a proper university, because I went not just to law but to med school in Eastern Europe, so there was no indoctrination here. It was just like they were trying to teach you not what to think but how to think. Very disingenuous, like you're seeing these arguments which you know that they are full of shit, and they are so disingenuous that they're the type of arguments that children would be having. No, actually, you know, even when I was a kid I was smarter than this, and it's very triggering for me because I'm thinking like there is no way that someone is smart enough to go through journalist school and write this shit in order to tell people that physically training yourself is wrong, it's evil, because the Nazis did it. And I'm really curious, like, how long are they going to keep bringing the Nazis into the conversation? I mean, there's going to be a time when our kids are going to be old. They, you know, like, they would consider World War II the same way Americans consider the Civil War now. I mean, yeah, it happened, you know, you learn about it, but it's in the past. It's like talking about the Mongols and the Huns and the Tatars. I mean, you know, after a certain time passes, the next generation is less affected by... Well, unless they just... I think it's going to be the foundational myth now, isn't it? Thank you for all the hard work, V. Why, thank you for the donation, Admiral Wolf. I appreciate it. V wants to ban Jim. Can anyone tell me why? What has he done? I never said I want to ban Jim. What? And what, Jim? I don't even have a person Jim in the chat. Do I? Anyway, propaganda is invisible to those it works on. That is true. Like, for example, I don't know, but like if the Nazis would say dogfighting is illegal, do we allow it now? Because, well, I mean, if they said it... Another example, the Young Turks were doing, and this was incredibly disingenuous, like the Nazis had borders, so if you are for border control, you're a Nazi. They did this under the Trump administration. I'm like, what the fuck, are you kidding me? Like, borders have existed, I think, like, after the Renaissance... Okay, they existed definitely during the time of World War I. So for 100 years, all nations regarding of political ideology had borders? Like, how uneducated must you be? So anyway, earlier this month, reported that the network of online fascist fitness chat groups on the encrypted platform Telegram are recruiting and radicalizing neo-Nazis with ideology, blah, blah, blah. There's also Antifa groups that do literally the same shit. There's religious groups that do this. There's like, okay, congratulations, you found the right way. Are they doing anything illegal? No, but it's scary. Okay, I get it. But to make an article where you're saying that pandemic fitness is linked to the far right, while the statement is true, it is very disingenuous given to the fact that it's linked to everything. It's like saying breathing has been linked to the far right. Because far right people are breathing oxygen. And it's, yeah, sure, you know, if you're going to like zoom in and you're just going to look at one piece of the puzzle, it sounds bad. But when you realize, no, actually everyone does it. In more modern times, far-right groups have launched mixed martial arts and boxing gyms in Ukraine, Canada, and France. Among other places, focuses on training far-right nationalists in violent hand-to-hand combat on street fighting techniques. I will not kick Jim, subject to change. I do thank you for the dollars. It caught the attention of intelligence authorities, especially in Europe, where various reports have noted the role of combat sports and MMA radicalizing. Yeah, I looked at the riots in France. Not many far-right individuals there. I mean, maybe there are, but they didn't film them. I mean, that's also a possibility, you know? Like the far-right groups in France, they were probably isolated. From what I can see, the far-right groups in France are wanting the riots to stop. Like Le Pen, which is far-right, right? Like she came out and disavowing the riots and saying that they need to stop. Interesting. I'm 28. Will this bullshit last my lifetime? No. No, it changes. Like, I will tell you something interesting, which I noticed. It changes, right? So, like, for example, when I started my YouTube career, back in 2014, everything was about feminism. To the point where you couldn't disagree if the speaker was a woman. Right? So if the speaker was a woman and you disagreed, you were a misogynist. And if you're a misogynist, you had to be fired, socially outcasted, banned from platforms. Right? Completely unacceptable. So, no disagreement with a woman at all, especially if she's a politician. Right? So that was in 2014. 2016, it was about Islam. So, in 2014, you had that famous comedian joke with Ahmed, the dead terrorist. I think it's still on YouTube. It has like millions of views. 2016, that joke illegal. Like, if you mentioned it or talk about it, like if you said anything negative about Islam, there was a person in Britain which wrote on his house, Islam is questionable, and he got arrested. There was another person which left a bologna sandwich on the steps of a mosque, got arrested, and he was killed in prison. Right? So, that was 2016. 2014, feminism. 2016, Islam. We move up to 2018. I think it was... No, 2020 maybe it was like Black Lives Matter. I think, yeah, 2018 it was about fascism, white supremacy, blah, 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 blah. Then you move on to... you move on to Black Lives Matter, and now it's all about the trans issues. So my point is, the oppression is there. Like, there are certain topics... Oh yeah, COVID, vaccinated, not vaccinated. There are certain topics that you are not allowed to touch. Right? Like, you're not allowed to criticize in any way, shape, or form. And this is like for a couple of years. And after that, the topic changes. But the oppression stays there. And what's interesting is that the things that you're not allowed to criticize, literally all the criticisms that you had in secret become mainstream later on. So, for example, Black Lives Matter, right? Recently, it turns out that a lot of the people running the organization have large mansions. The organization, from what I read in the papers, is about to go bankrupt. Right? If you say that back then, you'd have been censored. Now it's fine to talk about it. Muslims, right? So in the beginning, you couldn't talk about negative things about them, especially in Europe. But now Macron, like a couple of years ago, before the election, comes on and says how Islamoleftism is destroying the republic. and we need to do something, and blah 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 blah. And now, he's starting to deport imams en masse, and it's like, okay, well, hold on a little bit. Like, you're literally saying the shit that if I were to say back then, I would have been censored, but it's fine to say now, right? So this is pretty much how it's like. You get a topic that you can't talk about, and in a couple of years it becomes available and you can talk about it. I don't even think it's like eventually people figuring out the rhetoric nonsense. But yes, I do think like it does matter a little bit, like how much the normies are willing to put up with it. Like when the normies stop putting up with it, it goes away. But it's kind of like there's usually body positivity between the arcs. I do agree with that. Yeah. It's also interesting that they change the wordings, right? So, like, for example, they would use the word problematic. And at one point, just people stop caring, right? Because they start like, hold on, like, what do you mean problematic, right? Because like, problematic means they don't want to talk about it, just stop doing it. So they move from problematic to offensive, right? Like, well, this is offensive. And then at some point, people go like, okay, so what if it's offensive? It's true, right? And then they move on to a different word, and they start using the word harmful or dangerous. Right? So, but these words mean the same thing. It means we can't argue against this thing, but we want you to stop doing it, or else we will threaten your job, your career, right? So, another example is, if you look in the media, the word youth, right? Like they would say, 4 youths have robbed the store, right? Something like that. And eventually people started realizing what youth means. And now they will say stranger. Like if you Google in the media the word stranger, stranger attacks, you will find many interesting articles. And if you're a person that is willing to stereotype a little bit, you're going to notice that the strangers have something in common. On the internet there is the joke stranger danger. But basically, what I'm trying to say is that they switch the words once enough people realize. So, the word tolerance, for example, is not used anymore. Like, they don't use tolerance. They use tolerance, then they use acceptance, then they use equality, now they're using equity. So, to answer the initial question, will this thing still exist when you're older? The answer is probably yes, but under a different form. So there will be different cultural taboos. There will be different things you're not allowed to complain about. And the things that you aren't allowed to complain about now will be acceptable in the future. I hope I managed to answer this topic, because it's one that I ask myself. It's like, how long will this shit last? And the answer is, we don't know. Especially when there is no reason to get it to stop, but you kind of see that, for example, when it comes to ESG, at least people are now talking about it. Larry Fink was, oh shit, like, I hate the fact that people are noticing, so I'm not going to use it anymore. Yeah, they retired tolerance. I mean, like, when's the last time you read a single article talking about tolerance? They have no interest for tolerance because they're in control. Like, when they wanted power, they wanted tolerance. But now, like, you don't see the word tolerance. It's why I troll people on Twitter when I post something. It's like, I want ushikushi ladies in my video games with big booba. And they're like, oh my god, you're just a coomer, go touch grass. And I'm like, okay, I'm looking through your timeline and I see a lot of shirtless men. And I see some diaper furry. Like, I understand you're into that and I respect that. It's a very noble and uplifting thing to be in. But, like, why can't you be tolerant? I'm not coming for your shit. Why are you coming for mine? I'm not the one coming into your timeline and shaming you because you follow artists that are into diapers. Like, that's your thing. I get it. You enjoy that. Great. Why do I have to enjoy it as well? Sorry, no, why can't I enjoy my things? Like, your thing and my thing are separate. They don't even have to intersect. Like, it doesn't bother me that you watch the furries that have diapers. Like, that's great. Like, if it makes you happy, go do it. But why can't I be happy as well doing my thing? Why can't we both do our thing? Why do you want me to sit alone miserable with nothing to watch while you oogle at your diaper furries? Why? Why is that? Why can't you be tolerant? Right? Like that's the thing that, and by the way, I genuinely do not understand. Like, I literally do not understand. For example, right? The journalist that cheered at the bear. So in Baldur's Gate, apparently there is a bear scene that you can have sex, and I understand it, and it doesn't bother me at all. That's in the game. Like, that's the thing. Many people misunderstood the claim. I'm not bothered by the fact that in a game you can have sex with a bear. Fine, whatever. What I don't understand is, like, why the journalists that are cheering for that, like literally cheering, why are they upset that Cammy's old costume is back in the game? Like, okay, Cammy's old costume is back in the game, so what? Why does that upset you? Like, you don't, like, I know you're not playing Street Fighter. I know you're not interested in the game, and yet the fact that it exists bothers you at night. Why is that? Yeah, anyway, there's that bear again. Yeah, I apologize, chat. I understand it's everywhere, and you can't get away from it. But honestly, like, this really, I can't say it shocked me, but it made me happy because finally you get a good talking point. Like, it convinces a lot of normies when you show them, like, look how they're doing it here and look how they did it there. Like, that is one of the strongest arguments. Like, a lot of people say, well, pointing out hypocrisy doesn't work. Yes, it does work. And I can prove to you that it works. Like, I grew up in a village, and one of the most influential people in the village is the mayor, the village teacher, and the priest. Now, the priest was like the cornerstone of the village. He was like the village shrink, right? He was the connection between the community and Jesus. So a lot of people look up to the priest. A lot of people, when they have problems, they go to the priest, they donate to the church. So the priest is actually a powerful figure within a rural community. But if it happens that the priest is a drunkard and people know, then the priest loses all authority. People stop listening to the priest. People stop donating to the priest. They're not going to curse in his face, they're not going to insult him. But, like, they're not willing to listen, and they're not going to be moralized by someone without morals. They will listen to another priest, but not that one, because they know that one is a hypocrite, right? So it's kind of like that. Basically, I will tell you another one, a nutritionist, right? So, like, there is this profession. I'm pretty sure it may be in the United States, but it's probably not as popular as it is in Romania. Like, it's noticing a really big uptake. But yeah, listen to what Mech says. There is this profession of a nutritionist. So you go to a nutritionist in order to lose weight. Okay, like, you pay him a lot of money. He gives you a recipe. It's like, this is what you need to follow. They will look at your lifestyle. Then you look at what you're doing. They'll say, okay, well, this is what you need to eat. This is what you need to do. No one goes to the fat nutritionist. No one. Like, if you're a nutritionist and you're morbidly obese, no one goes to you. Because you, like, if you can't lose weight yourself, how is it expected that other people who got, right? So, I do think that pointing out hypocrisy and double standards is very important. They're not going to stop, right? So, like, the people that you're pointing out, they're hypocrites, they're not going to listen, they don't care, obviously. But the normies are going to care. They're going to be like, okay, well, I'm not going to listen to this person because they're a hypocrite. The intersection of extremism and fitness leans into a shared obsession with the male body, training, masculinity, testosterone, strength, and competition. What's wrong with having an obsession in being fit and being masculine, right? Like, this is another thing that I don't get from the media. They will say, well, every person needs to be able to choose their gender. Okay, I want to be a cisgender male. I will not bless you, Ebola. I do not have connection with God. But still, right? Like, this is something that is really interesting. So you can choose your gender, right? You can choose your pronouns. Perfect. I want to be a masculine man that is interested in masculine things. It's wrong, apparently. It's far right, says the media. It's championed as a tool to fight the coming race war and the street battles that will precede it. Recruits are encouraged to link individual moral virtues such as willpower, decisiveness, courage, with desired collective traits such as virility and manliness. Yeah, I'll ask you this. Are they going to criticize the people of Ukraine that are rising up against the invading Russians? I mean, the people of Ukraine are also exercising. They're also, right? Because, well, you kind of need to. Yeah, all men are far right. And then they go like Andrew Anglin is saying that continued obesity should not be tolerated. You know, I will tell you this. I think I said this before, but I'll say it again. Fuck it. I like repeating myself. This is from March 22 and 2022, so it's a little bit outdated, but it still checks out. I'll probably have to lose weight again. But I remember, well, like 3 years ago, I went up a flight of stairs, and by the time I got up, I couldn't breathe properly. I even recorded some videos with me going out, and the same thing happened. It was me going like, and I realized this is not healthy, right? I mean, it wasn't that I couldn't do the daily activities or that it influenced my way of life significantly. But I noticed that, okay, well, if I don't stop and I keep gaining weight, like at what point will I be able to not go, you know, like at what point will I not be in the hospital? So that's when I decided to lose weight, because I was feeling unhealthy. And the problem is that it seems that the media desires you to be unhealthy. It's sad. I must smoke more. I should. Self-improve. It annoys leftists. Yeah, notice how like there is absolutely no focus on self-improvement. That is such an interesting thing you said, Bullcraft. I mean, there's a lot of training on how to be less racist, you know, how to be more woke, how to be more progressive. There's like a lot of thing about the message of the class struggle and the group struggle and the identity struggle. There's almost nothing about self-improvement. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that like do you guys read anything in the media that tells you like, hey, this is how you can self-improve? And it's not just self-improvement in physical fitness. There's no self-improvement in anything. Like they just want you to get welfare, right? And the government should help you out. And that's pretty much it. There's no message about how you can start a business, how you can become rich, how you can do your taxes, you know, how to write a good resume. None of that. None of that. Like everything in the media is just be yourself, right? Which is one of the worst things you can tell to a person. Be yourself and get welfare. Decided to try a super chat. Why, thank you, Lord Valzi. I appreciate it. Even if it means that I am now seen as a pimp. Regretting coming in 543. Oh, I think it's coming faster than that. I think the moment you Chris start. If you have real regret, it's like when I tried to send the super chat and I accidentally double click and you sent two. That's the worst regret. You know, I had once a guy. He gave me $500 super chat. And usually when I get this amount of cash, I don't touch it for a while. Because there have been cases where people donate a lot and then they do a chargeback in order to get you in trouble with PayPal. But anyway, he says that he calls me, right, a couple of days later. He says that he was drunk. And he wanted to give me $50, but instead he gave me 500. And he wants the money back. And I'm like, well, shit, you know, like, fine, I'll give it back to you. But now I gotta pay taxes for $500, you know, it's not really cool. But I guess, like, that person had a lot of buyer's remorse. I did figure out that something is amiss, you know, because usually people don't give you $500. At least not to me. Like, if I was Gargura and I was singing and dancing like a cute little anime shark, then yeah. Um, yeah, all of these things like self-improvement is far right. And by the way, the people that talk about self-improvement are persecuted, aren't they? Like you have Jordan Peterson talks about self-improvement. He is persecuted. Andrew Tate talks about self-improvement. Now I disagree with Andrew Tate's way of life and ideology. All right, I do not think that a good man should dedicate his life to fucking bitches and driving cars. Like, I think that there should be more than that. I'm more of the opinion that you should try to start a family and raise kids. Like, if you want to be a real man. But still, you know, like, that is what Andrew Tate is going with. And, like, part of his message, and I always said this, like, part of Andrew Tate's message, which is to go to the gym and work out and be healthy, that applies. Like, that is not something that Andrew Tate invented. He is not the first person that came up with it. This is not something that is specifically tied to his ideology. No. But yeah, so apparently self-improvement is wrong. We shouldn't even consider it. I was looking at my artist. He drew jewelry on the succubus. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Self-improvement means less body and control for the government. Yes. And the thing is, like, before, it used to be that people could be recruited and brought under arms. So it was important for people to stay in shape. Like, for example, in Taiwan. Right? In Taiwan, it is encouraged that if you're a Taiwanese citizen, you go and you work out. And they do the same in China. Like in China, they canceled what they consider to be sissy men on television, right? So like the Chinese had this cultural influence from South Korea with a lot of K-pop stars. And, you know, like the Chinese themselves started emulating that. And the Chinese government said no. We're not going to promote sissy men. And they now have, like, government-sponsored masculinity programs. People are encouraged to go work out to the gym, right? So despite the fact that it's an authoritarian regime, it's due to the fact that it needs to be on a war footing. They encourage their people to be strong. But in the West, where the government doesn't think that there's ever going to be a need to be on a war footing, they encourage their people to be fat and complacent. And this is not like right-wing, left-wing. Again, China is a communist country. It encourages people to be fit. So shut the fuck up. In before, China is far right. Okay, well, then everything is far right. Like, you water down the definition of far right to the point where, you know, like a Republican, MAGA supporter and a person from the Communist Party of China is literally the same ideology. Like, fuck off with that shit. No more male pop star idols in China. I think they do have like some male pop star idols, but they're not pop stars. They're swimmers, or they're lumberjacks or shit like that. Let me show you the thing with Biden now, because this was also hilarious. So, let's see if I can find it. Here we go. Right. So, there is a thing in international politics which is called protocol. And protocol is incredibly important. I think like it kind of used to be, you know, like back in the day when a diplomat could start a war, right? So back in the day, you didn't have radio or television or anything like that. You would send a diplomat to a foreign nation, and based on how they behaved, he could actually declare war on part of his kingdom, right? So if you didn't sit the correct diplomat at the correct place on the table, if you upset him or anything like that, he could declare war on behalf of his king. And then he would go back to his kingdom and would inform the king, oh yeah, by the way, we're at war with this nation. So because of that, like, protocol is incredibly important. The way you frame things, the way you behave. But now it's more like, it's not as important anymore, but it's, I don't know, kind of like a facade type of thing, you know? It's kind of like burping or farting at a table. You just don't do it. right? It's disgusting when you do it, and people will ask why. But why though? Right. So this is why I'm bringing it up, because in 2018, give me a second, and I'll link it to you in a bit. But all the way back in 2018, Donald Trump broke protocol, but it was, in my opinion, a little bit acceptable. So let me show you what happened. I want you to look up first, right? So it was acceptable. You're not supposed to walk in front of the Queen at all, right? Also, an interesting fact: you are supposed to bow in front of the Queen unless you're an American. So this is interesting. Americans do not have to bow in front of the British royalty. In fact, it's considered a problem if you do. So the Obamas didn't bow. Trump didn't bow, right? Like it's kind of like a thing. Well, we got our independence, so you know it's again. If you were to bow, it's not incorrect, but it's kind of like farting at the table, right? I remember like when Trump saluted North Korean general and the left lost his shit. And the reason he saluted it is because the general saluted first, so you're supposed to salute as well, right? Like if you don't initiate the salute, then if you initiate the salute, then that's the problem. But if you respond to the salute, that's normal. Because the President of the United States is considered to be part of the military, and showing respect, even on the battlefield, can happen. Right? So like on the battlefield, if like two opposing generals meet in order to negotiate a ceasefire, they will salute each other. Even if they're enemies and they were killing each other before. Like that. But again, I don't know if the left doesn't know this shit, or they just pretend not to know in order to create outrage. So here you have Trump, right? And yeah, he's walking in front of the Queen. But as you can see, he notices the problem, right? Like he stops. And the reason he walked in front of her was complete accident, right? He just didn't see where she was. And she stopped. She's walking very slow because she's an elderly lady, but he's old as well. So he stops. He's looking. Where is she? Ah, here we go. Right? And he's... This was major scandal, right? It is a gaffe, though. It is a gaffe. Like, you're not supposed to do it, but it happened. Okay. Now look at Joe Biden. Look at him. Look. Look how angry the king is. Look at his face. Can you see it? I hope you can see it. If you can't, I will tell you, he's very angry. He's crossed. Like, he is looking, the way I can describe is great disappointment. I have been waiting my whole life for this, and look what's happening. Right? Like you can tell on his face, he's sighing. Like now his lips have parted open, and he's like, yeah, it's... and he broke more than one protocol. Apparently, he touched the king. You're not supposed to do that. Like, he touched him like he's a friend. And there is another point where the king literally has to guide Biden towards the correct... I mean, dude, it's painful to watch. Look. King Charles then had to physically move Biden. This is painful. I'm not an American, and this is painful because the president is representing the entire nation. Charles deserves it? I don't think anyone deserves it. I don't know. It's just... It's one of those things, you know? And there was, like, another one where... I think, like, the Treasury... yeah, Biden's Treasury madam... The one, the elderly lady. She was bowing in front of the Chinese president like this. Like zero, like you know, they would always say that Trump is not presidential, but like, do these people have any clue? Just remote idea of like diplomatic affairs? You don't bow in front of a foreign leader like that, especially in a nation where bowing means submission. Unless, because the thing is, like, they're not doing it on purpose. Right? I do not think that they actually try to do it on purpose. But if they are, then that would be a different thing. But no, they're just uneducated, uncultured. They literally, you know, they talk about multiculturalism, but they do not understand the culture of other nations. It's not even getting diplomatic up in here. It's just like This is basic knowledge. Like, you don't even have to study history to understand. It's like, okay, well, you represent a country, you have to behave yourself in a specific manner. Right? Like, for example, if I am the president of America, then I do not bow in front of the Queen. You don't do that. Because it's offensive towards the Americans. Like, their ancestors fought and got independence, right? They bled for that independence. For me to bow in front of the Queen would be a mockery to the ancestors that have died. You know, it's not cool. It's not polite. If you bow in front of the Chinese president, you're telling him that your nation is willing to submit. I don't know. It's just bizarre. And the thing is, the left knows this. When it's Trump, they know this. Oh my God, he saluted the foreign general. Oh my God, he walked in front of the Queen. 24/7 coverage. Not like taking a knee. Yeah, I mean, if you go to another nation and imagine this. I mean, this would be incredibly disrespectful. I think the Americans could pull it off, though. You know, you go to China or Russia or something, and the national anthem of China or Russia plays, and you're taking a knee. It's interesting how the athletes, though, don't do that, isn't it? Right? So the athletes that are fighting against oppression, like when they travel to another nation, which is also oppressive, they never take a knee to that anthem. Fascinating how that is, right? Wasn't it a huge scandal when Tom dropped the fish food into the pond? Yes. Like, it is really like the way the left behaves, right? So, like, they will apply standards that they themselves do not follow. Like when it's someone they disagree with, maximum scrutiny for everything. When it's someone they agree with, little scrutiny. Are they dabbing while doing it? I don't think so. The athletes have deals with China, but to them the US is evil. Well, I think the athletes have deals with China and the ESG money lending scheme, right? Which is why they don't care about the viewers anymore. Yeah, Trump crossed over into North Korea without a security detail. Like, sometimes you can break protocol and it actually makes you look like a badass, right? Would have been interesting. Like, if they can... Do you know they actually do try to do that? Like, they do try to pull people over the border. Like, it does happen, but usually at embassies and shit. Like, someone tries to run away and, you know, like, they're at the border and you have people trying to pull them and stuff. But what if they would have tried to pull Trump? That would have been interesting. Like, if Trump was abducted by North Korea. Elon has very lucrative deals with China. Everyone has lucrative deals with China. This is why, like, the thing is, like, no one wants a conflict with China. It's up to China if they want to invade Taiwan or not. I don't think they will, but, like, then again, so I said about Russia and Ukraine. The thing is, like, if they invade, Taiwan is 90% computer chip manufacturer worldwide. So it would be a big problem for the rest of the world. And it's one of the biggest trading hubs as well. Like, you cannot have the American empire if Taiwan falls. At that point, you would have China as the world hegemon. So this is why basically everyone has to intervene. It wouldn't be just the Americans that would intervene. It would be South Korea, Japan, India. Taiwan itself is no pushover, especially due to the geographical area and stuff. So yeah. Last thing the Queen said before death. So what is this vabbing I keep hearing about? It would be a problem for China too because they can't run the factories. Yeah. I don't know. It is what it is. It's a powder keg over there, but I'm still curious what would have happened if Trump would have been kidnapped by North Korea. China has the monopoly on rare minerals and by extension the whole electric car stick. Yeah, but I guarantee to you, if like, okay, well, we can't make electric cars, they will immediately say, all right, well, we're going to go through a transition period where people can still have cars. Anyway, right, thank you for the donations, and thank you for watching. I'm going to go to make videos for the other channels now, and I'll see you all there. Take care.